Okay, takes a minute to do that. If you're ever out and you want to watch any of those, they're on YouTube under Hickory Ridge Church of Christ, so it's pretty easy to find. You miss something, you want to go back and catch up on it. Tonight we're going to be in Ecclesiastes 11, starting in verse 1. Just going to kind of stay in this area, 1 to 6 tonight, and just kind of go through it and talk about good lessons that it has for us. We're in the New King James Version tonight. Um, Verse 1 reads, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days." And I think that the one of the lessons here, and I'm sure it's not the only lesson, it's not the most exclusive lesson that we have here, is that when you give something or send something out into the world, it'll probably come back to you in one way or another. And I think this is kind of reminding us to be charitable and to be giving of ourselves, giving of the maybe the extra things that we have, and to try to help others, and usually that kindness will eventually come back around to us. Doesn't mean that's the sole reason we should be nice. We shouldn't be doing things just for the idea that something will come back around to us. But I think it also means don't be afraid to give. Don't be afraid to give of yourself, or to give of your possessions. Maybe worried about storing and storing and storing for a day in the future, and being kind of stingy with your things, or with your money, or with even your talents. Usually things will come back around. Ecclesiastes 11:2 reads, "Give a serving to 7 and also to 8, for you do not know what evil will be on the earth." I think it's sort of my interpretation of it. My lesson from verse 2 is that it's sort of the same as verse 1, to share our good fortune, to that's being very charitable, to give a serving to 7 or to even 8. And also, there's kind of a warning here. You don't know what evil lurks out there. So I think also there's just sort of maybe an idea of being wary, being cautious. Like I said, this is not the. I read a commentary on this that was completely different from anything I thought when I read this. So there's definitely different interpretations you can have, different ways you can go on these verses. In 11:3 it reads, "If the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves upon the earth, and if a tree falls to the south or the north, and the place where the tree falls, there it shall lie." And I think this is a nice reminder that there's a lot of things that are out of our control, that they're going to happen regardless of what we do. Also there's natural disasters, there's dry periods, rainy periods. God is in control of these things. We're not, and we need to be accepting of that. And there's just a lot of things that are going to happen in our lives that we're going to need to go ahead and live our lives and move forward, and not get hung up on what can happen. And in verse 4, it really emphasizes that he who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not reap. There's this idea that if we're waiting for just perfect conditions, if we're waiting for the perfect time to do something, that perfect time may never come. So we need to do what we need to do regardless, and not sit there and maybe wait and say, well, tomorrow will be nicer, or I'll have this this bonus is going to come in 6 months. I'll wait for that bonus to show up. And you just don't know what's going to happen between now and 6 months, or now and next week, or anything. So if you do wait for the perfect condition, you probably will end up just doing nothing, because there's really no perfect time. A lot of decisions that have to be made, and people think they'll just wait for some perfect situation, and those situations just sometimes they don't seem to ever show up. Verse 5 reads, "As you do not know what is the way of the wind, or how the bones grow in the womb of her who is with child, so you do not know the works of God who makes everything." And I've talked about this up here before. Some things are so far out of our control, and we just need to have acceptance that God knows what the plan is, and we may not know what the plan is. And sometimes I think that gives us peace, especially when things are going awry. And I think we've talked many times. I know Bobby mentioned it recently also, seeing people, especially in the hospital, who, when life really goes awry, who just have no there's no center for them anymore. There's no scriptural center. They just really completely lose control of the situation, and they don't know where to turn. But it can also happen in not so extreme decision making. So we need to accept and rejoice that all is not within our control, and all is not for us to be blamed for either. And there's a real thinking in the world these days that I need all the answers. And we talked about science the other night, and and I think that's great to a point. But I think there is a freedom in understanding that God is in control, and I don't have to have all the answers. And it seems to me, as we move forward in our society, it's just harder and harder for people to accept that. They really want that individual power. And finally, in verse 6, it says, "In the morning sow your seed, and in the evening do not withhold your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, either this or that, or whether both alike will be good." And I think this kind of, for me, it just kind of went back to what I titled this: just do it. If we do the work, we don't want to be lazy about the work we do. We don't want to think that one thing we do is that beneficial thing, and so that lets us lay back on the other thing that we're doing. We need to do all the preparation when a storm is coming. If I tie down the trampoline, but I forget to tie down something else, what's the wind going to take off with? Might take the trampoline too. I definitely had that happen a couple of times. But this really means just do it. Don't just rely on what might happen. Do what you feel is best, and go out there and get things done. And finally, in conclusion, I had a couple of scriptures that I thought kind of related to all of this. Genesis 2:15 says, "Then the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to tend and keep it." So even Adam, had a job. There was a point. There was a point to the things he needed to do. He was to be in the Garden of Eden and tend and keep it. And I think, we need to have a point in our lives. We need to have work. I think work is a good thing. And it seems like today we see a lot of people who really don't want to work, or they don't have the same motivations, I think, that maybe we had in what's now our older generations, the gray headed people like me. I'm amazed at how fast this is going gray. It's just shocking to me, but that's wisdom. That's what this means, supposedly. So we'll just go with that. And then Colossians 3, starting in verse 23, and I think I had this in the talk the other night. "And whatever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the reward of inheritance. For you serve the Lord Christ. But he who does wrong will be repaid for what he has done, and there is no partiality." Kind of a double lesson here. I don't need to worry about other people being repaid for their wrongdoing. God will take care of that, and I shouldn't let that burden me. And we're definitely a kind of a revenge happy society. And now that you can do revenge anonymously online, people will just throw anything out there, and that is a whole new problem just in the last couple of really the last decade and a half, I guess. When I was growing up, that kind of stuff didn't exist. I guess you could write a firm letter to the paper, but that's about as far as you could get with calling people out unless you want to talk to them face to face. And now you can kind of hide behind your phone. And I don't know how positive that is for our society. But also, this tells us, what we're doing in service to the Lord. So we should be, upholding our highest standard no matter what we're working on. And I think kind of the work we do is an example to others also. They see the output, they see the kind of person that we are. That don't just mean working in a company or working in a business, but just the stuff that we do, the things that we need to get done. Do we do it in a positive way? How do we appear when we're doing the things we need to do? Are we all frustrated and angry about those things? I mean, I've probably folded a million pairs of clothes over the years because I work at home, and I would like to never fold another pair of pants or anything ever again, but that's just the way it works. We all have to do things that get mundane, but we should even bring our best to those things, because at the end of the day, everything we do hopefully is a service but the Lord who loves us and has done so much for us. So that's just stuff I had on my mind this last week. I hope it was sort of profitable. Like I said, somebody else could take this Ecclesiastes 11:1-6 and write something completely different and have a completely different point, and that would be great. That's what it's. We will all learn from it if somebody takes that on. If you do have need of the invitation tonight, please come forward while we stand and while we sing.
Sing the first 4 verses and sing the chorus after the 4th verse. Hear the voice of Jesus say, loudly crying unto all, in my vineyard work